In my videos, I've argued that psychotherapy is not tips, tools, and strategies, and it's not about just getting advice. I've told you repeatedly that it's a treatment intended to change something about yourself that you want to change. But today I'd like to qualify that a bit. Successful psychotherapy isn't always about changing something in yourself that you don't like. Sometimes it's about learning to accept things about yourself that you can't really change. What does this have to do with the Chinese Yin-Yang symbol, with quantum mechanics, Dirty Harry, and the serenity prayer? You're about to find out. I'm Dr. Stephen Reidbord, and this is More Than Meds, where I talk about psychotherapy and psychologically informed psychiatry. The serenity prayer, made popular by Alcoholics Anonymous, really applies to everyone, alcoholics or not. There's a few versions, but a popular one goes like this. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. There are some things we can and should change about ourselves, or about the world around us, our immediate environment. And other things we need to learn to accept. The wisdom to know the difference, that's often the hardest part. Sometimes people come to therapy with what we might call reasonable requests. They want to feel less anxious or happier, and psychotherapy can help with that. But other people, they want to be loved by everyone. They want to never feel shame or embarrassment. They want to be a great writer or a great leader, even though they lack the personality and the innate talent. Psychotherapy can help those people too, but just in a different way. In the early 1970s, there was a series of popular movies starring a character named Dirty Harry, a kind of brash anti-hero cop who would stretch the rules to have justice done. In his second movie, called Magnum Force, Dirty Harry, played by Clint Eastwood, had a tagline.
Man's got to know his limitations.
Man has to know his limitations.
Well, you're a good man, Lieutenant. A good man always knows his limitations.
A man's got to know his limitations. Dirty Harry knew that being more realistic and even accepting of the way you already are can be a real challenge. But, he didn't mention, it's something that psychotherapy can help with. Now, I know a few sticklers out there will argue that being more accepting of yourself is a kind of change. And I won't argue with that. Yes, it is. But I think the rest of you out there can appreciate that there's a difference between changing yourself to fit your ideals and wishes, hopes for yourself, and changing the hopes, ideals, and wishes to fit the way that you already are. So at this point, I need to introduce you to a concept called the dialectic. This is an idea that's been around for thousands of years, and perhaps the earliest example is the Chinese Yin-Yang symbol. This symbol is a graphic depiction of dualism or Taoism, arguing that complementary and at the same time opposing forces interact to form a dynamic system in the universe in which the whole is greater than the assembled parts, and the parts are important for the cohesion of the whole. In the symbol, the darker part of the symbol is the yin, the lighter part is yang or yang, and that although they're opposing and apparently opposites, they join together harmoniously to form a perfect circle. Note too that each component has a small dot of its opposite, a seed, that shows that there is no pure yin, no pure yang, that each contains a small portion of the other. This idea was restated in the 19th century by the German philosopher Hegel He held that every proposition, every belief, every statement, every thesis held within it elements of its own negation, an antithesis, or we say antithesis. And that only by taking them both together do we understand a greater truth, a synthesis. Thesis, antithesis, creating synthesis. This idea of his is very similar to those little dots I was just pointing out in the yin-yang symbol. This idea of apparently contradictory forces or concepts coming together to form a greater truth can even be found in quantum mechanics. You may have heard that we can conceive of light as both a particle, photons, and a wave. Actually, modern quantum mechanics sees the whole universe that way. Matter and all energy is something like a particle and a wave, both. It's hard for most of us to get our minds around quantum mechanics for that reason, and yet it seems to be a better explanation for the way the world really is, even though it's composed of apparently contradictory concepts. So let's get back to psychology and psychotherapy. Early in the 20th century, Carl Jung expanded on Freud's ideas to include more spiritual components. He included this kind of dialectic. He wrote about a union of opposites, how conscious and unconscious forces in opposition in the mind can result in a new third thing, a new creative entity that is more and greater than the sum of its parts. Now that itself sounds pretty esoteric, but it still sounds as though there's a kind of binary choice between wanting to change something in yourself versus accepting something in yourself that you can't change. But it isn't that simple. In the 1970s, the psychologist Marsha Linehan was developing a new treatment for clients with borderline personality disorder, a complex condition that is often marked by self-destructive or suicidal impulses. But as she was developing this, she felt that she didn't want to stigmatize or pathologize her clients. And so she thought, instead of looking at it that way, that she would incorporate a position from Zen meditation, which she had also studied, of radical acceptance. That clients who came for her treatment should be okay with themselves, should radically accept themselves. But then she realized that they wouldn't be motivated to change anything. Somehow, she had to combine an acknowledgement that change was needed with acceptance of how one already is. And she recognized that that was a dialectic. And for that reason, she named her treatment Dialectical Behavior Therapy, or DBT. The thing is, all psychotherapy works that way, not just DBT. Everyone wants to change things in themselves, and they also want to be okay with the way they are. The change acceptance dialectic allows a larger truth to emerge. People change, and they become more self-accepting. So yes, you picky word experts out there, psychotherapy is always about change. But sometimes you're changing yourself to be the way you want to be, and sometimes you're changing the way you want to be more accepting of yourself. And often it's both. A complex combination of change and acceptance, where a better alignment of your wishes and your ideals with your actual capacities and your true nature is deeply transforming and changes your life going forward. Well, that's it for this week. As you may or may not have noticed, I've been releasing a new video every week, every Wednesday morning here, California time, and I invite you to subscribe. Please like this video if in fact you like it, and please check out this video, which discusses who really benefits from psychotherapy. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.